Now, my next guest shares the gut-wrenching story of someone who went through hell and back in a desperate bid to cure his childhood trauma. Billy Burleigh transitioned from being a biological male to a trans woman after being encouraged to change gender by the US medical establishment. Does that sound familiar to you? He suffered 7 years of grueling surgeries under the promise it would cure him of deep-rooted depression, but still never found the happiness he was promised, resulting in him detransitioning. Now, after finding faith in God and finally feeling comfortable in his own skin, Billy has a stark warning for the nearly 8,000 children awaiting NHS gender identity treatment in the UK and their parents who think going down the trans path will magically cure them of their troubles. I'm delighted to say that Billy joins me now. Hi, Billy.
Hey, Mark.
A privilege to have you on the show. Can I start by asking you what traumas you were trying to heal when you transitioned into a woman?
The traumas that I had as a child is I had this reoccurring thought, and it started in the 5th grade, that God made a mistake. I'm a girl. And that's the exact thought that plagued me for all of my younger life into adulthood. And that thought actually plagued me so much that I had to deal with it, Mark. I had to deal with it, and a lot of people may turn to maybe drugs, alcohol, something, but I actually turned to working out as hard as I could to move the pain out of my mind and into my body. And that worked for a number of years. But Mark, when I got into college, you could say all of that closet that I pushed all of my emotions into, the door blew off the hinges. And at that point, I had to start surgeries. Or at that point, I actually sought help for my mental condition.
Would you say, looking back on it, that your decision to transition into becoming a female was someone else's decision, or was it yours?
The situation that I had, because I transitioned back around 2000, when I sought help from the mental health community, I went in saying, I want to be healed with, I want to stay man, I want to be healed, but I got this battle that is going on in my mind. And after 5 years of trying to deal with that battle, I told the therapist that I wanted to transition. I did a lot of reading in books, journal articles. I tried to learn what was the cause and what was the solution for my problem. And everything that I read told me that I had to transition, that I possibly had a birth defect, that my mind, when I was in utero, was washed with the wrong hormones. And to fix that birth defect, I had to change my body to match my mind. And when I told my therapist, after 5 years of seeing her and trying to fix my problems, that that's what I wanted to do, she gave me a hug and she told me, Billy, I knew you were going to arrive at this decision one day. I didn't know it was going to take you this long. And she said, we will walk this road together. She gave me the letters I needed to go to start on testosterone blocker, on estrogen, and to start the transition process. So it was my decision, but once I made that decision at that point, she embraced me and helped me through the complete transition.
So therefore, the safeguarding that, looking back on it, you needed was not there. What procedures did you have done? You've mentioned hormonal treatment, but you've had operations as well, haven't you, Billy?
A great number of them, Mark. The very first operation I had was actually a penile inversion. And in that very first surgery, I also had a brow shave and an Adam's apple shave. And after coming out of the operating room, the surgeons and the nurses could not stop the bleeding from my new artificial female genitalia. They had to put more gauze into the cavity. They had to put a sandbag on my lower abdomen. I also had to receive a blood transfusion and plasma. So my scheduled 2-week stay in the hospital for that procedure turned into a 3-week stay. And very fortunately, I'm still here. The bleeding did stop, and I was able to recover from that surgery. Then after that surgery, I had a number of other surgeries, including voice feminization surgery. And in that surgery, after the surgeon took a knife and cut my throat and got to my vocal cords, he tied sutures around my vocal cords, and I was in twilight sleep. So for that surgery, Mark, I had to actually come out of the anesthesia to wake up some, and I had to speak while the surgeon actually tightened the sutures so that he could adjust the tightness so that I would achieve a higher pitch voice. And so I went through all of these surgeries believing what the therapist conveyed to me, what the journal article said, and that I would eventually find my peace as soon as my body matched my mind. And Mark, I didn't find it. It was never there. After 7 years of trying, it just wasn't there.
It didn't happen. And you don't have male genitalia now, do you, even though you've transitioned back to being male?
With surgery, I've had that body part removed in the theory that that would make me happy. And flat out, it did not make me happy. And I'm very fortunate because I'm married now. I have 2 step daughters, and but you could say that I'm not a functioning a man in that respect.
Well, I'm very happy for you that you're so happily married now, and those stepdaughters, I'm sure they adore their stepfather, and I congratulate you on your journey. You found the faith and love of God. I know you're in a really good place now, and you found the peace that surgery didn't give you. So big congratulations on your journey. You look brilliant. I know that my viewers and listeners will just be absolutely on the edge of their seat listening to your story. Can I ask you what you would say to any young people in this country, in the UK, watching or listening, who are considering transitioning, or their families? What would your message be, Billy?
Do not do it. Absolutely. Do not do this. I have made many mistakes, and coming back and transitioning back to male, I've actually have identified some of my problems that I had as a kid, because being very skinny, having a speech impediment, being dyslexic, turning words around in my mind and not learning how to read until much later in life, I learned that I had a lot of trouble as a kid. And instead of having gender dysphoria, out and out, I had dysphoria. I was a confused young kid. And that confusion manifested its way into gender dysphoria. And I was trying to find acceptance, significance, and security by changing my body to match my mind. And that was wrong because, Mark, also I was sexually abused when I was in the 6th grade. So that contributed to my problems as well. So I have talked to a number of other detransitioners and also people who haven't detransitioned. And what I have learned, including myself as a data point, is that we have problems as kids, as children, and we don't deal with them. So the mental health professionals, instead of doing gender affirming therapy, should be doing trauma therapy to help children deal with the childhood traumas that we carry into adulthood. Our acceptance, significance, and security is not found by chopping off body parts. We need help. We need therapy, not gender-affirming therapy.
Billy Burleigh, I and my viewers and listeners are humbled to hear your story. You've got amazing courage to come on the national television airwaves to tell your story. And on behalf of my viewers and listeners, we wish you well. We wish you every happiness and your family in the future. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mark.
Billy Burleigh there with quite the story.